It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. Thank you for joining with us. My name is Michael Evans, and you're listening to America's Voice Now. Glad that you've joined us. Appreciate your attendance this morning. Boy, I tell you, it sure comes hot and heavy these days. It just feels like like everywhere you look, the layers and the level of lawlessness is just so abundant, so abusive, so blatant. And I'm frustrated that Americans across the board seem utterly apathetic to what's happening in our nation. Our 4 topics this morning will be Obama is threatening and claims he will veto a bill that Congress is about to vote on that will require him to follow the law. So Congress is going to pass a law that requires the president to follow the law, and he's going to veto that. With all due respect, there's not much to say if he does this. When government makes the laws, violates them at will, when government holds no respect for the Constitution, and none of them, not Congress, not the executive, not the judicial, follow it, it's time to declare them all dishonorably discharged and remove them with prejudice. Don't leave a single member in office in the House this coming election. If this happens, I got to tell you, folks, every senator who is up for election should be removed. Every House member, because they all come up for election, should be removed. And a massive peaceful civil disobedient march on the Capitol that will remove the Traitor-In-Chief must be accomplished. I do not understand how America can stand by and watch as our republic is dismantled, moment by moment, block by block, piece by piece. Our second topic will reinforce this. A teenager, 18 years old, in high school, jailed for 13 days for a pocket knife. What's worse, there was no search warrant. They searched his car. They found a pocket knife. They've charged him with a felony. The kid has gone through law enforcement training. He's gone through EMT training. The knife was in an EMT vest in his trunk. They found a stun gun in his car, but it was locked in the glove compartment. They didn't charge him with that because it's not illegal. They're now threatening to ruin, and by the way, he had pre-joined the military, and he was waiting to graduate from high school before entering the military. The military's now basically fired him in advance, anticipating or waiting for some word that he's either been adjudicated and found not guilty or what have you. And then when people put up we're going to talk about it in detail. I'm telling you, guys, if you do, this is insanity. If you do not recognize that we have turned this nation, and we have allowed this nation to be turned into a police state, it's because you refuse to lift the mask that is blinding you and covering your eyes, covering your ears, and blocking your mouth. You fear the truth. You fear what must be done because you are complacent. You are apathetic, and you are afraid to admit that these actions and what this nation is going through right now will necessitate action on your behalf that will endanger you and your comfy cocoon of apathy. The ease with which you live. The cocoon of complacence. And you are acquiescing to the greatest tyranny that could ever be perpetrated on us. America, this is getting beyond the scope of anything that we can tolerate. Our third topic, I'm going to reinforce it again. 8th graders. 8th graders in an essay which a parent took umbrage with. They stated that, and the majority of them, stated that they would rather be slaves than factory workers. You know why? Free food and protection. Quote, the majority of the class felt that they would rather be a slave than to be a factory worker. The rationale by those students, chose slaves because they had free housing, they had free food, and they had free protection. Is that what we have become? God help us. Our fourth segment, the NSA, the CIA, the surveillance police state. What part of this don't you get? Brand new exposure by Snowden on how the NSA is using Facebook to hack into your computer. How the NSA is infecting millions of computers globally with malware that allows them to gain access and 100% take control of that machine, go in, grab whatever they want. More information as well on the White House and how they tried to mediate this dispute between the CIA and the Senate. Issa is coming out and claiming that the CIA spying on Congress may even be qualified as treason. Ladies and gentlemen, is this the America that you expected to live in at this time in your life? Is this the America that you want to hand on to your children and your children's children? If you think things are bad now, what will they be like in 5, 10, 20, 50 years? All right, let's tackle our first topic. I'm so disturbed today. I am. It's beyond comprehension that we have allowed our nation to turn into this. And I'm incensed that Americans will not stand. This tyrant is threatening to veto a law that would allow Congress to sue him, to force him to follow the law in federal court. He's claiming that it violates the separation of powers by encroaching on his presidential authority. With all due respect, if he followed the Constitution in the first place and faithfully executed the laws as his oath has sworn him to do, this discussion wouldn't need to be had. There would be no necessity to encroach on the separation of powers. But the premise of the separation of powers is that one division of the three can oversee and prevent exactly the type of tyranny that is being perpetrated right now. We are in a constitutional crisis, ladies and gentlemen. We are in a fight for our lives and the lives of this nation. despite the fact that 50% of the country is asleep. And out of that 50%, most of those people are either completely patently unaware because they're loaded up with antidepressants and drugs, legal and illegal. A huge percentage of them are sitting there on the government dole, so anxious to just live a life of ease and complacency that they will lock the bracelets down upon themselves. Goodness gracious, what have we become? The White House Office of Management and Budget says on Wednesday, the power the bill purports to assign to Congress to sue the president over whether he has properly discharged his constitutional obligation to take care that the laws will be faithfully executed exceeds constitutional limitations. Well, with all due respect to the Office of Management and Budget, I would strongly encourage them to read the Constitution again, then reiterate the president's oath, in which he promised and swore an oath. So help him God, whatever God this one believes in, that he would faithfully execute the laws of the United States and defend and protect this nation and this Constitution. They went on to say that Congress may not assign such a power to itself. Neither may the president. Sorry to break your bubble. They went on to say, Congress may not assign such power to itself, nor may it assign to the courts the task of resolving such generalized political disputes. Well, my response to that is, you're absolutely correct. The judicial system and the courts have an obligation to step up and take proactive action to prevent tyranny. They have refused to do so. They have abdicated their responsibility under the Constitution. The legislative cannot accomplish it because ideology and partisanship have so set this nation apart. The chasm is forever unbridgeable. Trey Gowdy is the lead sponsor. He says that it's designed to curb Obama's abuse, predominantly related to the Obamacare stuff. He says, we have pursued certain remedies afforded to Congress to address executive overreach, but these efforts have been thwarted. The bill is necessary. It will give Congress the authority to defend this branch of government as the framers and our fellow citizens would expect. Here's the challenge. Right now, every time Congress would attempt to take the president to court, the courts say, you as Congress don't have the standing. See, the courts are hiding behind this argument of standing. And it is a betrayal of their constitutionally delegated authority and their, not just their authority, but their obligation to preserve and defend the Constitution. The courts are hiding, cowering in the corner. They're so abusive of us, but when it comes to reining in true tyranny, true lawlessness, they are mute. They have made themselves inert, impotent. Another bill out by Ron DeSantis out of Florida would require the administration to explain decisions, not to enforce laws, when those decisions are rooted in policy rather than in a constitutional issue. By the way, the Justice Department is already required to do this by law. So Obama's argument on this is that it would, here's what OMB says. The bill would inordinately expand current law, which already, how abusive can you get of our intelligence? Expand current law. You mean, are you talking about the tens of thousands, the millions of pages of verbal and legalese diarrhea you have injected into our society? You mean that law? You mean the law that is so bent and twisted that no one can follow it? Not even the lawyers, not even the people who have written it? You mean the law that's been subverted by your allowance of administrative agencies that have no authority to exist, no constitutional claim to life, that fill it with rules and regulations that parade about as law when they are legally prohibited by the Constitution because no law may be passed by anything or anyone but Congress? You mean that law? The OMB says the bill would inordinately expand current law, which already requires reports to Congress when non-enforcement of federal law is based on constitutional grounds. DeSantis says the American people deserve to know exactly which laws the Obama administration is refusing to enforce and why. The OMB came back and said federal agencies are continually engaged in the process of determining how to concentrate limited enforcement resources most effectively. Yeah, you're pointing the spear at us with administrative agencies, federal agencies, that have no authority to exist. We never delegated or subdelegated or allowed Congress to subdelegate our authority to unelected, unnamed, faceless, nameless, unaccountable bureaucrats in literally thousands of federal agencies who pass rules and regulations and promulgate them as if they were law. Ladies and gentlemen, that is treason. They have violated the Constitution, and Congress has allowed it, the courts have allowed it, the president's allowed it, the whole damn lot of them are out of control. The truth is, not a single one of them has a leg to stand on. None of them. Read the Constitution, read the documentation, read the founders' words. Go get your Federalist and your Anti-Federalist papers and understand what they meant. And if you say that that's not pertinent anymore, then there is no rule of law and anything goes. And you may as well just completely abdicate all authority, all rule of law, and just allow a tyrant to take over control. And then like the 8th graders over there in Michigan or wherever that was, you can sit there and safely get your free housing and your free food and your free protection. Don't ask me what the price is. You should know. Mike Lee came out. First of all, Eric Holder, who doesn't have a right to exist as anybody, as any member of government, he told Mike Lee from Utah that he thought Obama was, quote, probably at the height of his constitutional power. And he was referencing the Obama mandate delays that have been implemented unilaterally, illegally, unconstitutionally, without any authorization. But here's the rub. Eric Holder says he can't explain the precise legal analysis. This is the number one law enforcement officer in the country, and he cannot explain what he uses to justify this lawless behavior. Lee says, when you look at the quality, not just the quantity, but the quality, the nature of the executive orders that he has issued, he has usurped an extraordinary amount of authority within the executive branch. This is not precedented. And I point to the delay, the unilateral delay, lawless delay, in my opinion, of the employer mandate as an example of this. And so at a minimum, I think he owes us an explanation as to what his legal analysis was. And he's referencing Holder there. Ladies and gentlemen, there is almost no point in continuing these discussions. There is almost no point in my continuing to do this radio program. There is no point to my attempt to awaken America when America wakes up and says, I just want to go back to sleep. I don't care that there's a hurricane approaching. I don't care that there's a tornado taking down the house. I don't care that the ground is opened up and it is swallowing the home and the bed that I'm laying in. I just want to go back to sleep. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no rule of law anymore. Let's face it. We live in a police state. We have already succumbed to tyranny, to lawlessness, to dictatorship, to totalitarianism, to authoritarianism. It's done! And unless you are willing to stand and do something about it, it will only get worse. Yes, I'm angry, but my heart is broken. It is broken for this nation. It is broken for my children and yours, and I don't even know yours. The nation is aflame. And if you refuse to see that, it's because you are unwilling to acknowledge it, because you fear what will be required of you. You fear what will be required of you because you fear death, or you fear loss of what? Loss of what? Your comfy lifestyle? Your electronic gizmos? Your laziness in front of the television for hours a day while you are indoctrinated? It's beyond control, ladies and gentlemen. And I cannot express to you how far down the rope we have slid. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about this student who's been jailed for 13 days for a pocket knife. And that's only the start. What part of totalitarianism don't you get? Good Lord, folks. You can find all these stories that I talk about up on America's Voice Now. You can also find the YouTube videos there, posted on America's Voice Now, but you can also find them on YouTube at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. You can communicate with me directly via email at mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. We'll be right back.